You all ready, Scott?
You're all set, Terry.
Okay, I'm set to go. So, I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the dot. And before we go to public comment, we don't have any minutes to review tonight, but before we go to public comment, I'd like to read to you a email that I received late this afternoon from Gordon St. Hilaire. Dear Terry, I'm submitting my resignation from the Williston Selectboard. I consider my service to the town of Williston an honor and have enjoyed my time on the board. It has been a pleasure to work with the Williston community. Sincerely, Gordon St. Hilaire. So with that, we'll go directly then to public comment. Is there any public comment from anyone? Brian, why don't you come to the table? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Oh, thanks.
For the court, sir.
Ouch. Thanks, Scott.
So why don't you take the seat out there, Brian? But we have our guests.
My name is Brian Forrest. I'm a 10-year resident of Williston and a former energy coordinator. On one side of the sheet is a proposed energy plan budget that I gave to Eric last year. And on the other side is a list of the towns in Chittenden County and their tax rates. Williston is down at number 15. And if we fully fund the energy plan this side, it'd add 13 cents to our tax rate. And that would drop us all the way down to number 14 with still a almost a 3-cent margin between the next town. So obviously there is not a financial impediment to us funding the town energy plan. And in my comments last week, I talked about how the international community and the United States is not fully funding the climate crisis, and the state hasn't seen its way to funding the Global Warming Solutions Act. So if anything's going to be done dealing with climate, it's going to fall upon the towns. And if Williston, with its low tax rate, is not willing to fund this issue like it funds other public safety issues like fire and police, then it's not going to get done. And people like Terry and I are not going to see the full effects of climate. But the rest of you and your children and your grandchildren are definitely going to encounter the catastrophic events that the scientists are telling us will happen, because we're on a path to have it happen. So unless we stand up and fund the energy plan, nothing's going to be done, and the consequences will be what they are. And let me just say one thing, that when all is said and done, you will not be remembered for keeping low taxes. That's going to pass out of everybody's mind. You will be remembered if you stand up and deal with this crisis and protect the residents of Williston. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll put this in our files to look at as we go through the budget. Anyone else in the room have any public comment to make tonight? Anyone on Zoom have any public comment tonight? Nope. No. Then we'll go directly to the operating and capital budget presentations by our various departments. And the first one we have tonight is our town clerk, Sarah Mason, to give us the clerk and elections department operating budget. I don't think you have anything in the capital budget. So you're on.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Happy to be here in the top spot again. And I will keep it short so that we stick to your schedule for your evening. I know that you're all pretty familiar with the budget for both my clerk's office and for what's sort of subsection out for elections. It tends to be pretty straightforward and pretty consistent with normal needs. Computer replacement, office supplies, ballots, and postage. You'll notice probably just a little increase, probably along most line items, which I won't go through, which is really just the cost of everything, being higher. The building maintenance is kind of a big jump that we're all splitting the cost of, so that's kind of a big bump from 16 up to 20, but that was really one of the bigger items that I can't really don't have much control over. Something of note, I guess, would be that revenue is headed down in a couple different sections as we sort of adjust to this post-pandemic life and how people are going about their days and the availability of a lot of things online. My two biggest ones being land records are online as they are in all states. Vermont is behind on that, but we are online as most towns are coming on that way. That does equal attorneys, realtors, appraisers, being able to access those from home. So some revenue is down from that. And also we're just not having the banner year we had in 2020 or 21 when interest rates were very different. So the refinancing and all the sales have sort of come to a halt. So that is down a little bit. The other noticeable spot would be in vital records, where before your town clerk was the only spot you could get those things. You had to go to the town where the birth, death, or marriage had occurred. That's not the case anymore, and that's been the case for a couple of years. When the state sort of streamlined the process, you can get those at any town. So the people that are getting most of that business would be towns that have funeral homes in them. Towns that have the hospital in them. We lost some revenue when the respite house went to Colchester, and that's been years, but that line item, which was a pretty good stream there for a while, is also sort of starting to come down just a little bit. The good news is that passports are back up. We had a year where I really couldn't do any office traffic was, minimum 0 for a while there. So that will be on the up and up. And again, Shirley and I have to make some pretty big estimates as far as some of these numbers, since a lot of what I do depends on, human nature and the state of what's going on out there. Another one a little hard to project is postage every year. When we get to the elections budget, I really have to sort of think about postage, number of people that are going to want mail-in ballots or absentee, whatever anybody wants to call it, which is, of course, drastically increasing every year. So both of those I've bumped up a little bit on each of those categories, just as our best guess, watching some of the data that I have from the past years of in-person versus mailed ballots. So that is pretty much everything in a nutshell. Like I said, I know you've all seen it. It's in your binder. It's consistent year to year, a few fluctuations, and just trying to see where everything will sort of line out in these next couple of years.
Thank you, Sarah. Questions for Sarah regarding her proposed budget?
No, thank you for having such a straightforward.
Very straightforward. Try to stay on an even keel here. Thank you, everybody.
We like those. Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much, Sarah.
No problem.
Sarah.
Next, we have Cemetery Commission, Jack Price, who is the chair of the commission.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jack.
This is Drew Nelson, my right-hand commissioner, soon to take my position, I think. So I believe you have 3 documents in front of you that Shirley and I worked up. One is the cemetery summary. Then there's the expenditures, breaking down the expenditures for the cemetery commission, and also the revenues. I'm going to deal just with the summary, and I'll walk down through that and try to keep it brief, as Sarah did. And what I'll do here is, if you need me to elaborate on any item, please interrupt, and I will explain that as best as I can. But bottom line is the Cemetery Commission is asking for a 7% increase in budget this year. Fiscal year 2023, our operating budget was $36,585. This year, we're asking for $39,255. That increase is almost totally accountable for by what we anticipate the increase in the expenditures for professional services. Professional services are defined as mowing, trimming, leaf cleanup in the spring and fall. And last year, we engaged a new contractor for that. We feel he did a very good job in the 4 cemeteries in Williston. We'd like to keep him. We've had some problems getting quality work in the past, and even some damage was done by people who weren't competent enough to do that. This was not the case this year, and we're very happy with this contract, but we'd like to keep him. We haven't talked to him about next year's possible contract, but I've been encouraged by people in the know to probably increase the line item for professional services by about 10%. And again, that would basically account for most of the 7% increase we're asking for our budget. There's one other line item that we added this year that we haven't had in the past, and that is a $500 allowance for the maintenance of the monthly maintenance for the Memorial Garden, which is the cremations repository as part of Chittenden Cemetery. In the past, that garden has been neglected because it hasn't actually fallen in the job description of professional services for mowing and trimming. So with our request for $500, that accounts for the 7% increase, along with the bump for professional services. Having talked about professional services, let's look at property and casualty insurance, telephone and postage. That's out of our control, so I'm going to skip right down to maintenance and repairs. Maintenance repairs, we have had a standard line item for that for several years now of $5,000, and that basically covers monument repairs, the cleaning of stones, repositioning of markers, storm damage, etc. Things that are just wear and tear in our 4 cemeteries. And that remains standard for $5,000. That's what we applied for last year, and that's what we are this year. Next item is cornerstones expenses. Cornerstones are a 6-inch cube of granite with a monogram of the lot owners that we sell a lot to in Deerview. They define the circumference of the lot. It's for reference points for us, so we know where to sell the next lot and who is in there as far as the record is concerned. So we're anticipating that we'll need 6 sets of cornerstones to be ordered this year, and at current prices from vendors in the monument business, these cost $300 a set. So 6 times 300, 1,800 there, plus the installation of those 6 sets by one of our subcontractors, $150 per set, brings that cornerstone expenses line item to $2,700. Equipment repairs and maintenance is an old line item that is no longer relevant, and this time next year, that won't even appear on this summary. We don't have any equipment anymore. When we, well, we do, but it's not being used, so we don't maintain it. So that will drop out of there. At this point, we have the lawn mowing services subcontracted, so that's irrelevant. Okay, Memorial Garden maintenance and interments cost. There's a mistake here in the proposed fiscal year 2024 down at the bottom. Sorry, Shirley, this is something you don't know about. And then those last 2 line items I'm going to correct. Luckily, they cancel each other out, so the bottom line is the same. So the interments that we do in the Memorial Garden have been 2 or 3 a year for several years now. So we're estimating on the high end, maybe, you know, you never know, but we're estimating 3 interments, and with the contractor who prepares the site at $350, that's $1,050, and then this new line item that I'm applying for, the monthly maintenance fee of for $500 for the season adds on to that. So the total line item there would be $1,550 instead of $1,400. Okay, so that's a bump up of $150. The next line item should actually be titled Lettering on Memorial Garden Stone. Okay, and this is somebody has to actually put the dates, the name of the person who was interred in the Memorial Garden, and the dates, and that is a fee that is escalating like everything else in this post-COVID or COVID era. And so right now, it used to be about $150 right now. What's the range there that you found, Drew? What was the range for lettering?
From 250 to 320.
Okay, so we're maybe a little optimistic that we can keep it at 250, but that's what we're going to put down right now. So right now we charge $600 to reserve a place in the Memorial Garden. $350 of that goes for the interment fee, and $250 of that goes to the lettering. Now that could, obviously we're going to have to keep our eye on that and bump it up so we don't lose money in this aspect. But so at $250 per set, or for lettering, and with an anticipated interment of 3, that makes it $750, which is down $150 from the 900 that was. It originally was accounted for as $300 for lettering, so that would be 3 times 300 instead of 900. It's $750. Is that? I sort of threw that, but so those are the expenditures. The revenue that we raise for the cemetery basically comes from the sale of lots in Deerview and the Memorial Garden. The fee is $500 for residents in Deerview. It's $1,000 for non-residents of Williston in Deerview, but $600 for resident or non-resident in the Memorial Garden. We also get an annual gift, hope it keeps coming, from the Hazeltine family, usually of $2,500. That helps us a lot, you know, in making ends meet. So just for your information, we sold 11 lots in Deerview this year, and since the beginning of the fiscal year, and two spaces in the memorial garden. Total burials in our cemeteries this year was 26 in all the different cemeteries. Questions?
Any questions for Jack?
No.
Again, straightforward, so thank you and the commission for all the work you do. Thanks. Moving on to planning and zoning, so Matt Belanger. And what, do operating first and then do capital after that?
Okay. Thanks for having me tonight. Planning and zoning operating budget is very similar to budgets of the past few years. I've identified a few differences for you in my memo. Starting off with revenue, we did adjust our revenue projections upwards a little bit. Traditionally, our revenue projections have been very, very conservative because we know they can be volatile, but we've seen performance over the last number of years that suggested we could slightly adjust those upwards with fair degree of confidence, so we've done that. In terms of expenditures, the two biggest changes, we're asking to put some more money back into our miscellaneous planning studies line. This is the line we use for consultant help and in particular to match grant requests we make through a number of different programs that lead to larger comprehensive planning projects. In particular, in FY24, we're hoping to kick off a fiscal year-long public engagement process for the 2025 Williston Town Plan, which will be the major work product of the office over the next couple of years. We also are proposing enough funding in there to match the MTI, the VTrans grant for microtransit feasibility study, which Williston was selected for. Beyond that, we would have a little bit of headroom remaining in that line item to support any unified planning work program requests that we make through CCRPC, and we have a few small ones of those that we may pursue for next fiscal year as well. Otherwise, this time last year, we were working through the process of considering adding the energy planner position to the planning program, and we ultimately did do that. And in really simple terms, that just means that our numbers have increased ever so slightly by one, but there are a number of budget line items that need to track with that to support training, office supplies and equipment, subscriptions and dues, et cetera, as we have those additional staff. So I've made minor adjustments in those lines just to try to reflect supporting the additional staffing that's in the office. And we've found that training and maintaining certifications and regular replacement of equipment, especially the laptops in the office, just keeps us going and avoids anything where we really are down because we're down on equipment or something like that. Lets us keep a little bit of reserve in terms of our technology especially, and we've seen good results from the training opportunities we've been able to access in the past. So that's most of it. From my end, we've seen good use in operating as it relates to our conservation efforts and continuing to have our part-time trails and primitive parks land stewardship position in the summers. That's been really terrific. I will also note, and Eric may have shared with you a late-breaking memo from the Catamount Community Forest Committee. The request they are making is to add another $2,000 to the Catamount Community Forest line. This is not reflected in the budget you have right now. It's for discussion later. And they've provided some information about land management activities that would be supported by that increase if the board wants to take that up as you work through your total budget in the next month or so.
I just received that from Matt, so I'll get it to the board before the next meeting.
So I'll stop there for the moment. I'm happy to take any questions about any particular lines or overall direction of the department or what we think some of those comprehensive planning activities look like coming up. Otherwise, we can talk about capital.
No, it's, again, pretty straightforward.
Any questions for Matt? No. Okay. Looks like capital then. I think we only had a couple of things that I saw in the capital.
Yeah, and I confess I printed everything, and I think I didn't print capital, so go on memory for a moment here. But really thank you, Shirley. I think you saved me before on this.
At 54, 55, is that what you saw?
Yeah, that's about right. So, sorry.
Yes, you're
Fifth
correct,
page is
Eric,
54 and
yeah.
55, sorry. So, really our capital budget is all about infrastructure related to our country parks and the Catamount Community Forest. And you can sort of see with what's on 54, we're talking about some stream crossing structures, a new access trail from Governor Chittenden Road to the southern parcel of Catamount to reroute traffic away from the homestead there, and some trail restoration work that will need to take place following the forestry activities that are planned for the community forest. We also, not in this budget, but a conversation we've had is regarding the sheep barn, the historic structure on the property. And, the town is essentially committed to stabilizing that structure similar to the way we relate to the Brennan barn on that parcel. But when we talk about making capital investments in it, we sort of go around and around a little bit about is there a use for the structure? Is there a reasonable cost to adapt the structure for a use that would make sense? And if not, then simply stabilizing continues to be the strategy out there. So just, you're not seeing that in this budget, but a conversation that I think will continue to come up and just happens when towns own historic buildings, as I'm sure you're familiar from a number of others that we have. On page 55, this is our ongoing capital request to do other maintenance of our trails and facilities in our other country parks that are not Catamount. We've been handling costs this way for some time, and you can see from the items in the project summary, most of what we're talking about is replacing and maintaining boardwalks. We have trails that go through wet areas, they have boardwalks that have a lifespan, and because of the inventory work that was done by SE Group in past years, the good news is we have a handle on those and their replacement life cycles and timeframes in which to do that, and this capital budget request continues to support ongoing maintenance at a pace that will help us keep up with those. That's what I've got.
The other item, Terry, well, I think hopefully I mentioned this to you, Matt, was maybe walk through your memo for the growth projection as well.
Absolutely. So we tucked that into your memo. This is only the second year that we've prepared a projection like this for the board to look at. I'll give some thanks to Emily Heyman on my staff for putting a lot of this together. We worked together on it this year as well as last year. So in our conversations about preparing this memo, we wanted to provide some additional context. The original assignment last year was to talk about population. And when you talk about population, you're talking generally about residential growth, and it's still a big piece of the memo. But when you're thinking about the growth of the town, and especially in the context of long-term investments that are made in the town, it's the overall growth that the town experiences. And certain kinds of growth result in certain kinds of demands for town services and facilities, not just residential. So we did want to provide a little bit of context around commercial growth as well this year, and we've tried to do that. And the comparison I make just as a measure of intensity is that with what's on the books now, somewhere in the permitting cycle, i.e. we know about it, we can predict almost as many new vehicle trips from that commercial development as we can from all of the residential development that we know is planned. So just as a very, very rough measure of the intensity of development that happens in town, that's, the vehicle trips is one way of looking at it. It's a point we made just recently in our 5-year review of the town's growth center designation by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and the Downtown Board. They ask you a lot of questions about how much has happened in the last 5 years in your growth center and how much has happened in the last 5 years not in your growth center. The one where Williston always looks very good is the residential growth, in that 70% or more of our new residential growth in the last 5 years has occurred in our planned growth center. When they start asking about commercial uses, the Downtown Board wants to know, well, how many structures were built in the growth center and how many structures were built outside the growth center? So as Emily and I were looking at the numbers, we said, well, you know, we had this or that new multi-tenant retail and restaurant structure in Finney Crossing, and then we had U-Haul, and there were 16 structures at U-Haul. So by the numbers, it looks like less is happening in the growth center than really is. So we brought in the vehicle trips as a piece of context there. In regards to the residential numbers and population predictions that come from them, this is an extremely, extremely optimistic prediction. It assumes that all developments will proceed as fast as Williston's permitting timelines allow them to, and that all of them will actually commence on those schedules. That's not realistic, but it's the quote-unquote worst-case scenario that you would want if you're asking just how many more people might we expect to be in Williston in the next 5 years. And you see our number there, roughly 1,400, but dialed back by about 200 due to continuing trends in shrinking household size. So over that FY23 to the end of FY28 prediction line, about 1,200 new people in Williston.
This is page 20 for the board in your,
Thank
in
you.
your packet.
So again, I'll just say it's a very optimistic projection. Starting next year, assuming we continue to do a memo like this for the board, we'll actually start to assess what our predictions were in the past and how close or far away we were. We did a little bit of that informally when we were preparing these numbers this year, and just said, well, you know, some of these projects that we thought would get off the ground in FY23 have not. That's par for the course. We think they will come online eventually. But once we have a couple of years worth of predictions, we can go back to that first set and say, well, just how much of this really happened. You know, I would guess that we'll find that somewhere between 75% of what we predicted and all is where we'll land. Most of it will get off the ground. Most of it won't get off the ground as fast as we allow it to under our permitting regime.
Questions for Matt?
No, not really. That last comment had me a little confused, though. Most of, you talked about, you know, this, you know, somewhere, you're gonna come where, somewhere between 75% and what you actually predict. That made sense. And you said most of it will have some delay associated with it. I didn't quite get that piece of it.
So after somebody gains their approvals from the town, or almost all of their approvals from the town, they will usually, if they need to, go to Act 250. And we spend a lot of time in residential subdivision talking about growth management, setting a start date, setting a schedule at which, you know, units can come online. It is almost always the case that the first fiscal year or two in which we predict and allow units to come online in a project, nothing happens at all. Maybe toward the end of that second fiscal year, the roads start to be constructed or excavation goes in for utilities, something like that. So this memo doesn't assume that that delay will always happen. It just says if we are in a position to issue a permit for something, we're assuming it's getting off the ground. But in reality, especially for larger projects, that's almost never the case. There's a lot of more permitting and preliminary work that happens before it gets off the ground.
Okay, even though it's gotten its town approvals. Okay.
And as one person who looked at this memo for me said, or we could have a big giant recession. And, you know, certainly Williston has experienced, you know, predicted projects that were going to move forward and then a change in economic circumstances and things slow down. And I would say, reflecting what Sarah Mason said about activity related to financing, refinancing, and sales, you know, that increase in interest rates over the last year, we do see it as a small slowdown in the build out of existing projects. And just, you know, it affects how quickly things turn over. It affects who can purchase. It very much affects the actual real price of buying a home. And all of that changes what we see in terms of the permitting track and build out track.
Getting back to your, you know, discussing there might be a delay, especially in larger projects, but particularly if they have to go through something like Act 250. But that window of time they have to do that project will stay the same. So is part of what you're saying there'll be an accelerated development post that 1 or 2 year lag?
The track we tend to see is projects will sort of catch up to their growth management schedule. And then they will usually finish about when or just a little bit after that growth management schedule imagines that they would finish. Typically, if somebody has some kind of product in their development that can be sold individually, like a subdivision that has some single-family homes on lots, those may get off the ground first. That funds the infrastructure, and then maybe the multifamily product comes in a little later. So as that plays out in terms of number of units per year, you see there's sort of a pause, and then a few start coming online. It may even not be all that many by the numbers. Then things hit sort of a steady pace, and then if economic conditions don't change, it sort of winds down within a year or two of when we thought it would.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. I think we're set for tonight anyway, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So we're running a little bit ahead of time, and the next folks will be the Police Department, Chief Foley and Lieutenant Moore. So we're doing both operating and capital, right? And so we'll do operating first, and then the capital, I just only plan on hearing about anything that has allocation for fiscal year '24, not anything that doesn't have allocations.
Well, I'll start off this evening, thank you, and good evening, everybody. Another lovely budget season going forward. It seems like we're meeting every week with the board, but hopefully it'll be a long way before the next meeting. But our FY '24 police operating budget is, again, a collaborative effort between the town manager, the finance director, myself, and my lieutenant, who's next to me on the right. During the past 4 budgets, we were recommended staffing at 17 sworn personnel to include myself, a lieutenant, 4 patrol sergeants, a comfort dog, and then patrol officers. We've never been really at full strength in the 5 years I've been here until this past July, when we graduated our final 2 officers, Officer Sabrina Booton and Officer Kelsey Parker, that brought us up to full strength. And I have always talked about that, you know, once we get to full strength, we need to see how, you know, our operating strengths are and where we need. And we've already seen it in the short time since July, where we're planning to reintroduce our detectives position, which is called BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And we've noticed in the last, since July, a very large uptick in DUIs/DUI drugs. And the drugs is a big concern for us, because with the recreational marijuana coming out, we believe we're going to see a lot more of that. So we developed, Lieutenant Moore developed a position called the Traffic Safety Officer's position. So after the first of the year, once we meet with the union and come up with, job descriptions and MOUs, we'll interview, and hopefully by at least sometime in February, we'll be operational with a detective's position and a traffic safety officer's position to go along with our comfort dog program. So we'll have a unit upstairs in our building. There'll be, what do we do?
Special units.
Special units. So that's working well. And our comfort dog is, since it's been with us, it's been a shining star and all that. As you look at our budgets, again, we increased our patrol salaries to include all the positions, the 17 positions, and also our newly created positions. Our administrative salaries include myself and lieutenant, as well as the administrative model to support our police services, including patrol, investigations, and communications. I guess we spoke last week during that presentation about the transition over to the town of Essex. We're reallocating time and for our administrative assistant to spend more time downstairs to pick up the duties that our dispatchers can't do at that point. Meet and greet people Monday through Friday, still carry making the payroll, making the voucher, paying, the administrative costs, but also assist in the offices with their work in there. So we're, over the next 2.5 weeks, is more of a training for everybody. The dispatchers are over in Essex training on their days off, and the administrative assistant, Rowan Derby, is being trained downstairs to acclimate herself in the front lobby, pretty much. Again, being this far out of the center of the town, we really don't get a lot of walk-ins. The walk-ins we do usually get are people using our drug drop-off, or people coming in for fingerprinting. That seems to be the biggest walk-in. So we need to have somebody in the lobby to set up the appointments, have them be ready to be fingerprinted. So it's a work in progress. So hopefully by July 1, we'll be ready to go. Definitely for dispatch, we'll be ready to go. And I think it'll be day-to-day for downstairs in the lobby. And speaking of that, we have signed an MOU with Essex for the next 2.5 years. There will be a co-shared dispatching operations there in Essex. They are, like I said, they are over there now training on their days off. It sounds pretty good, and it's still the same thing. It's just in a different building, a different town, but it's still Williston Police. The other increases, and basically we support basically 3 things in my general budget. We support the Chittenden unit for special investigations. Again, that's something, down the road, we'd like to try to put somebody in there to offset why, the cost it's costing us to put somebody over, but that's part of what we're gonna look at with the detective, position, to train them and all that. But our community support group, which is supported through Howard Center, we have 5 outreach specialists that share 6 departments. There's 4 plus a supervisor. They're assigned to departments throughout Chittenden County, and it's worked out great. They're getting really used to, our officers, and we have a good working relationship with the whole group of them, the whole 5 of them. We also support our community justice program, which is very, very active even during this pandemic and all that. We cover the costs not covered by the Department of Corrections, and with that, it's that we will not know until May but they have met, the Commissioner of Corrections met with CJC and their volunteers and did a lot of discussions on that. So we believe we might be in a favorable spot of not have to come up with additional monies. But it's state government, and governor decides what's going to go and that. So we keep our fingers crossed, but we believe program. There has been some changes. The assistant to Crystal Lee, Brenna, she left and took another job. We're in the process of starting one of the interns that came over, I think, from St. Mike's. I'm not positive where she came from, but she's gonna fill in the vacancy for the next 6 months to see how we're gonna go with the money. So the corrections, then we'll decide if we're getting the money that we need, then we'll fill out that position for her. Really, pretty much, most of the cost is based on cost of living during our budget. And if you look at all our budgets since I've been here for the 5 years, it's a tight budget. There's no frills in it. We pretty much try to hold the pencil to the paper, when we run this business. It is a business. We've done some adjustments with overtime, with the additional 2 full-time positions that brought us up to full staff. So over the next 6 months, as we end this fiscal year, come June, we'll be able to see how well we did with the adjustments, and that'll guide us further through. Speaking of personnel, we're in the process of trying to start up a study, just like the fire department did almost 2 years ago. Myself and the town manager has met with one of the vendors, a local person who's done this on a national level and an international level. We're just trying to come up with the funds. So, it's right now it looks like a $30,000 investment. So we need to figure out where we're going to get the money to make it work. Because if we have to wait any longer, then it drives us back. Because we're looking at grants through the federal government, the COPS office. So if we can figure out a way by next year, when we get ready for the next year's the FY25 budget, and we can say that we need X amount of employees, additional police officers, then we can go forward come March and apply for the federal government. And it's they'll split the cost over 3 years for us. So, we won't have to pay the full boat of that position until 4 years. So it saves the town a lot of money. So, but we need to have the okay from the voters that, so that's going to be a work in progress for the two of us, being lieutenant and the town manager, and Shirley, the finance director, to try to find a course, between now and the end of June to see if we have any savings in our budget. But we need to try to get this off and running. As the planning and zoning administrator talked about, is that the growth is, even though you talk about growth, it's still growing. We see it every day, and we look at the traffic. Matt does a great job, but we look at the traffic in this town, and when we have 3 of the busiest intersections in Chittenden County, it tells you something. And just drive around the town and all that. I don't see anything major in our budget other than doing the cost of living, so we can go over to the capital, and if somebody here has something.
Let's just check and see if anybody has questions for you on the operating budget.
Do you want to take over the capital?
There's really nothing.
You mentioned the study, and you're going to hire somebody who is going to look at the police department, and I assume identifying what we're doing well and what we might want to do increase, and which could include new police officers. What's your gut feeling?
Well, hypothetically, if you take what the population per 1,000 calls for the fire department, they use the number 1.9 firefighters per 1,000. So take the 11,000 that we have just for our nighttime population. Let's not talk about the people coming into town, shopping, eating, staying at the hotels. But the census, shows about 11,000 residents here. So rounded off to 2, that's 22 officers. We're at 17, so that's 5 more officers. If you take the projected daytime population, anywhere from 15 to 40,000 people on a given day, depending what time of season and all that. Everybody talks about a study that was done in the 80s and early 90s when they were planning to put the mall in, the Pyramid Mall. And they were talking about our PD being the size of South Burlington, around 40 officers. But nobody can find that study for me. I've been calling people up that I knew in town, and nobody seems, and I'm getting asked by. So, just do, if you look at the FBI does this every year when they do uniform crime report. They talk all about the country, all the districts and all that. New England averages anywhere from 1.8 up to 2.3 officers to 1,000. So I always rounded off to 2. And when I was down in Massachusetts, I used 2. You know, and our town was basically the same population, the nighttime population. We had no businesses, we had no industries. So, you know, you're doubling it, even tripling it on a good day, you know, a good summer day or a good fall day, the foliage, college graduation, homecoming weekends, all that. It's just, you know, I invite any 4 of you to spend a couple hours with us in a patrol car and ride around. You know, you live in town, but see how we see things and all that. But what we've asked him to do is that not just do a right-of-way thing, but he plans to build it out. So like, okay, what's the PD gonna look like in 5 years? What's it gonna look like in 10 years? What about 15 years? So it's not gonna, so this plan he's looking at, and he's gonna do surveys, and he's gonna meet with groups in the community, just like the fire department study did, and get a sense of what people see the needs are for the police department. So it's not gonna be a one and done. It's gonna be like a strategic plan that we talk about. You know, when we plan out, you know, what we're gonna do for the police in 5 years, that's, you know, we're gonna look at that. So Don, whoever, you know, takes the seat after I retire, whenever that might be, has a game plan. And the town has a game plan. You know, the town manager has it, the finance has it, you know, the board has it. So that's what we're looking at. You know, it's something that needs to be done. You know, there was a study done, I think in 2010, just about, you know, Chittenden County. You know, how many police departments, how many officers and all that, and nothing went with it. You know, so again, hopefully it's done correctly, and I have really a lot of confidence in the gentleman that we've talked to. I've seen some of his work. He's got some people that I know that have done this before, that I really feel confident they understand what law enforcement's about and understands what community needs are. So, you know, it's gonna be a work in progress, but we wanna try to get it started now. So he said it'll take anywhere from 3 to 4 months to complete.
Okay. So if I could repeat what I heard is, using different words, is be prepared because it may come back that we are significantly understaffed on the police department, in the police department.
Yeah. You know, I said that when I took over in 2017, but unfortunately, we were never full strength. So you gotta figure out, you know, I always tell people, you know, you build on your strengths and you fix your weaknesses to get them to your strengths. And, you know, we'll see, you know, when I took over in Douglas, you know, we had 6 officers. When I left there, we had 15. And that was in 22 years. So it's something that, you know, it doesn't have to be right at the bat, but we build the building blocks. You know, the first time out, maybe get 3 officers. And then, you know, skip a few years and then go back and add 3 more officers. So you're gradually building up and you're staying pace with the growth of the town and all that. You know, I want to have each shift, you know, we want to have 2 people in the BCI, in the detective unit. You know, so that way somebody can go in the QC and help them out. I want to have each shift with a supervisor plus 3. So, you know, when somebody takes a day off, you still have 2 officers and a supervisor. So you're not worrying about backfilling with overtime and things like that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the heads up.
The silver lining is there are grants out there. So the COP grants, those are usually a springtime, you know, you apply for them in the spring. And they do help offset for several years. So, you know, that does help with the cushion of the overall budget, so.
And I've been working on this with Chief and Lieutenant for a bit and looking to make sure our department was fully staffed and maintaining that, get that baseline and then look at what the future needs are for the community. I put some money in the manager's budget in FY24 to look at part of this initiative and also be looking to bring to the board if we could start looking at this in FY23, identifying some funding to stretch it over 2 fiscal years, understanding where the numbers as you're going through for 24 are tight. So see if we might have some availability in FY23 to start this project and then round it out in 24. So items for the board.
And just on that note, it's important to remember that if we wait another year, then it takes a whole nother year to apply for the grants, and then it takes a whole nother year to hire people.
Yep.
You know, it's 12 to 14 months from the beginning of hiring to getting them on the road. So every time that we push this off, it just adds to it. And with the amount of growth that's going on, it is going to affect us.
Will they also look at, whether or not our community support services kind of piece is also commensurate with the growth of our town? I would assume that would be another area that we'd want to, I know Howard does a good job, but I assume with a growing population and a growing police department, we'd also want to increase community support services and all of that as
Yeah,
well.
and that's definitely something that can be looked into. I believe Essex PD has a gentleman over there
Yes.
now that is their employee, that
Yeah.
is kind of doing what you're speaking.
Pretty much like a
Yeah.
community liaison.
Yeah, and I just think that's an important,
Yeah.
seeing the way policing's working and all of that, and how effective the community support.
Yeah, there's a
positions
lot
have
of,
been, yeah.
different tools, there's a lot of different things that you can do, with positions and funding, so.
Excellent. Thank you.
The traffic safety officer, is that, how is that gonna be different than a regular patrol officer on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day, so if this was to come to fruition, if this position is created, it's a supplemental position, so this person is a designated person who is experienced and trained in DRE. That is a crash reconstructionist that can do all the fatal accidents, here and elsewhere when called upon. This will be the resident expert when it comes to those types of things. Speed carts, we have many of them that it's extremely cumbersome to sit there and dump all the data and report all the data. So this person will also be the liaison for the governor's highway safety program. So they'll run that for our police department. So it takes the load off of some of the other folks that are carrying a lot of different jobs in-house.
DRE, drug recognition expert.
Drug
Do we have enough of them now, or is there enough?
In the state,
No, in Williston.
we have 2.
Yes.
Is that enough?
We actually do really well.
Yeah.
The 2 that we have are pretty active. One of our newest members, Officer Miller, I think he's probably number 2 in the entire state right now for DRE call-outs and exams.
Okay.
I did something a few months ago, I think. I did a report, I don't know if you were here for it or not. But I compared the last several years for DUIs. I didn't break it down between drugs and alcohol, it was just cumulative. And when I did that, I think it was November 1st we were already in the 80 range. And that was like 50 more than the year before and 40 more than the year before that. So the uptick is there. And from what we're seeing every morning when we come in, it's only gonna keep increasing.
Yeah, the intention here is to assign our incumbent officers into these special duty roles, not adding any additional people at this point.
Yeah, it's just a lateral move. And the way that we envision this working is it actually will lessen the call volume for some of the road officers. So if there are accidents, this person is designated to take those when they're on shift versus the officers, so that way they can deal with the other calls that are coming in.
Okay, great, thanks.
So if we continue on, so I just did want to make sure, right now, there is not another officer proposed in this budget.
Correct.
Yep.
This is us being creative.
Yep.
Yes.
But what I'm concerned, when I say I'm concerned about it, please take that in the right light, is if next year we're in a position where we're bringing on 5 new officers because the study came out and said you are dangerously deficient, from, let's say, a police officer safety standpoint or what have you. My approach would be much more than let's start hiring now and not have to hire 5 at once. If we can, instead of hitting this, I don't know what the right word is, it's not wall, but where we have these hefty increases, I'd rather see it more of a ramp than a 1 year. 5 officers versus maybe 2 in 1 year and 3 in another. That may not be possible right now, but in an ideal budget world.
It's
where we are
weird. The
looking
whole
at-
situation is weird because you look at all the neighboring agencies, you look out of state, everybody's hurting for police officers, where
that's
we're in
the
the
other-
opposite position. We have all the ones that we can have right now, but what the town is telling us is it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. Our call volumes are skyrocketing. So yes, we are gonna have to ease into this. I think, one, using the COPS grants, And, you know, I would apply for 4 if we can, and hopefully get all 4. Because I don't think that a lot of these other agencies out of state are gonna be able to use COP grants because they have so many open positions. So we might actually be in a good position where we may actually get all 4 and get the funding for all 4, and that will definitely lessen your blow. You know, then the other thing is, can we find the people? I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. And then, like I said before, we gotta keep our people hungry. If we don't give them other opportunities, they're not gonna stay here. There's too many other opportunities to go elsewhere, so. With creating new opportunities and at the same time, you know, expanding the size of the force, it's only gonna, you know, benefit the community, but benefit the people that we currently have.
So what do you hear? Is Williston a good police department to work for?
That's all I'm hearing so far. You know, I mean, we've come to you folks many times now because we've seen the writing on the wall. We've never, I mean, it's been a revolving door since the day I got here, and that was 16 years ago. And there's many reasons for that, but there's many reasons as why that's not like that any longer. You know, we came to you and we saw an issue and, you know, there was bonuses that were given out for retention. Well, that seems to work because now we're fully staffed and everybody's here. So, you know, there are ways to keep people hungry and keep them here. And I think doing it the way we're doing it is good right now.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anything else on the operating? Let's go to capital budget.
For this year, we've added 2 additional things. You know, when you build a building, it doesn't stay new. It gets old. You know,
What's that, I'm sorry,
and,
Shirley? 60? Okay.
So one of the hurdles we had over the last 2 years is our HVAC system and building maintenance. So we've changed a lot upstairs, but our door locks, which are security brand, they don't make them anymore. So that's.
Yeah, we're in buildings, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Let's see, we got the page numbers, keep everybody.
27.
Yeah.
You are
Okay.
kidding. That brand-new building is 16 years old?
Yes.
Bond's gonna be paid off in a few years.
The mortgage burning party.
So this is a, you know, during the pandemic, Lieutenant Moore was able to access grants to upgrade our building next door, enlarge our offices room, did some cosmetic work and all that, but we noticed our building locks, access were falling apart. So it was a 2-year undertaking. And this year, we're looking for an additional $80,000 to fund that, to finalize it and all that. So as we talked last week about, you know, egress, and from Essex will be able to monitor us when they're over there, so they can do everything our dispatchers, so they can open the doors for us, so this is all gonna be state-of-the-art locking mechanism, so, and that project would be completed, so this would be off after next year.
Yeah, phase 1 was just completed, and I spoke about it the last time we talked about the dispatch move. Initially, it was 41,000 last year, 41 for this year. Obviously, you can see that 41 turned into almost 80,000 this year, so, and that's just the cost of doing business right now, so. But the remainder there, that 78,000, that will conclude the project in full for us.
Our intent was to split over 2 budget years, but we didn't count on inflation making the cost that much higher by deferring it a bit.
And it's been dragging because there's no pots, you know, it's evidence, you know, back ordered and.
Yeah, and last capital, the total was 82,000, so we split it, and now it's almost 80,000 for the second half now, so.
Again, second piece of the puzzle is our HVAC system, our furnaces and our roof. We need to plan for a rainy day to, our HVAC system is pretty much up to date. They've done a lot of, over the past year, a lot of fixtures to those, and, but we're concerned about our furnace and our roof. There've been some patchwork up there, so we need to put something in a rainy day fund and plan, you know, that it lasts longer than, you know, another year. So that's our second largest capital that we've put in here.
Okay. And how does the, I see an ask of 15 versus a manager recommendation of 5. How does that pan out?
We certainly, looking at the request, I'm wanting to build this just when the bottom line was getting finalized. We had to make some adjustments here. You know, certainly we want to build this up over time, but the board's discretion how you want to fund this. But initially I needed to look at some areas to trim a little bit initially, and had to look at some of these longer term savings first.
And the history of that is before last year, there was never any capital for the building. So this was brand new for you folks last year. And the reason is that, you know, there was major issues, and Shirley can probably come up with the real number, but it was somewhere around $30,000 that it cost us to fix the HVAC system that was never budgeted. So that whole 15, that was more of just putting something in there for the time being. So that's what that initially was.
Next thing up is on page 60. Which is our vehicle replacement. We try to rotate our cruisers every 2.5 to 3 years. We try to keep the miles down so we get great trade-in and resale when we do trade them in. We went to a large vehicle. We went to Tahoes this year. We did away with our pickup truck. We actually sold the pickup truck to Berlin PD because, again, all the police agencies are not getting their vehicles. And they might have ordered a vehicle in 21 for 22, and now they're getting a 23 because there's no more 22s, and their costs went up, and they got to still wait 6 more months and all that. So Lieutenant offered it out to the departments in Vermont who needed a vehicle, and we had one agency that was gun-ho, they needed it, so we actually exceeded the trade-in that we thought we were going to get. We have a second vehicle that we brought over to Hershak today for sale, and again, it's far above the $10,000 that we'd get in a trade. It could be higher than $20,000. So again, the resale on it, we keep them, you know, we take care of them, you know, we repair them when they need to be repaired, we keep them clean and all that. So every year we're rotating, and the ones with the least miles, they'll go to our K9 comfort dog officer and our detective unit. So their vehicles are still up to date and newer and all that. So you know, so that's what that is. It's a constant every year, of course. Again, and everything went up higher. The equipment, we try, like with the new Tahoes now, is that when we start looking at replacing them, they will be able to move the equipment that currently in them over to the next round, because they're pretty much, the size will not change that much, the interior of the vehicle. So we'll get a good, you know, 6 years out of the equipment we have in them before we have to replace them. The uncertainty is the laptops we have and then mobile data, you know, wear and tear, the way, you know, you're driving and the bounce and all that. So that's the unknown.
Okay.
This year, the next page, 61. Does anybody have any questions on the cruises? I should keep asking that.
Just a comment that like we're looking forward at the possibility of electric vehicles sometime, not too distant future.
No, and again, yeah, everything's, you know, contingent on when we do the lot in the back to put charging points out there someday. You know, I think it'd be the first one would be the hybrid. See how that works. But you know, I know Essex has a couple of them on the market. You know, with us is that it might be good for somebody in, you know, the detective unit to have an electric vehicle, or how, you know, Officer Cohen with the K9. But, you know, again, when we're out in the middle of the interstate and 0 temperature and a blinding blizzard, you know, you gotta make sure that car's staying running, and, you know, what's the life expectancy and all that. So, it's gonna be a trial and error, but, you know, we're looking forward to it and be a little more progressive on that, but I think we start slow and with units that are not gonna get a lot of travel time on it, because we listen to, some of the neighboring communities that do actually have electric vehicles, and by the time they get to work, they have to go over to Healthy Living and charge the cruiser up for a couple hours so they can do patrol work before they, finish their day and come back and charge it again before they head out. So it's gotta be efficient,
And on the parking lot, we're working on design. I just signed a contract last week. We have money in this year's budget, and part of their design work will be to design electrical conduit in the back parking lot, and I've asked them to extend it over to the police part of the parking lot as well. So we can lay the infrastructure when we work on the parking lot, probably targeted FY25 as we get the pricing and look at a couple of grant we might look at too, but build that infrastructure in, so then when it comes time to look at changing the fleet to EVs, gradually, that we have the infrastructure built into our parking lot to handle that.
Traffic,
I'm good, thank you.
traffic safety, equipment, we just added a third trailer. And we have signs, and we network with Bruce and Highway. When he needs additional sign, we share costs and all that. But this year, we should be all set with our signs. We do have some covert monitors that we put up there also, so we'll get an accurate picture. So that'll be one of the duties of the new traffic safety officer, going out there, moving the trailers, downloading the data, compiling the data, and all that. So this is on page 62, our technology. We're pretty much spot on with that. We're building on the monitoring equipment. If you notice, in FY22, we received a grant to replace all our cameras and monitoring equipment. Keeping this fund will assist us to go forward, creating a cycle. Again, if you have time, in your busy days, stop in the PD, look at the monitors we have, that we're watching our building, we're monitoring the fire department, we're monitoring town hall. It's clear as day. And it's really a safety thing for us, that we can watch the valuable assets we have in this community through and that is, being transferred where Essex is going to be able to monitor us from their department.
No additional technology was needed because of the dispatch transfer or anything?
The costs really weren't
Yeah.
anything significant.
Remember you said there was some fiber connection?
Fiber, yeah.
But yeah.
There was-
okay.
Yeah, which we built in the annual, it's $308 a month for that.
And that's in the regular budget.
Just the startup, I mean, we'll be fine for this current budget. We've been finding it.
And like we mentioned last week, is that we've already got a meeting set for June. So it'll be at 6 months. We can see where the, challenges are, see how everybody's working, and what changes do we have to make as we go forward. So, right now, everything seems pretty good. Everybody's on the same page, so that's positive. On page 63, again, will be a reoccurring course over the next few years to reestablish the account. We purchased new firearms this year, new holsters. We were able to recoup a lot of the money from the sale of our used weapons. So everybody likes the weapons we have now. Nobody had anything negative to say about, and they did very well in the qualifying. So that's a positive. So. This is the next one on page 64. I'm just talking about it. I'm just listening to everybody else talk about it, so I defer to the town manager.
I can update the board on this. The radio communications tower project, we've talked about it a little bit over the past year. The board approved the lease agreement for the property a couple meetings ago. So I've been working on this with a town attorney, looking at the next lift in this is going to be the Public Utilities Commission filing for a permit for this structure. So it's likely going to take a little bit of time in the next year. I'll have a larger timeline update for the board on this. As I put a little more work into it the next month or so, but we're gonna look at that permitting piece and then look at the funding piece a little bit more for the board once we have a pathway for the permitting plan here. And part of the permitting is gonna be the cost to it. There's gonna be some legal and some consulting engineering to look to prepare this application, and it'll likely be in the tens of thousands of dollars to look at the permitting side. So I want to get a better handle on that. I'll probably be issuing an RFP for engineering services, project management to assist in this, and I should have an update for the board probably later this winter.
So if we are going to move ahead with doing some of the work that's needed, whether it be permitting, and there's nothing in the capital budget, where will that money come from?
We'll have to identify those funds.
Okay.
I don't have a good handle on
Yep,
what that number
okay.
is right now,
Yeah.
so just hold off for a little bit.
Okay. All right.
We done?
That's it for the police department.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you, and again, thank you for all your support this past year.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
So, welcome to Recreation and Parks. Good one is here. Recreation and Parks, and again, we're doing an operating budget first, and then after that.
Great, thank you. Looking at our operating budget, under the recreation, we are proposing a revenue increase in the day camps. The enrollment has increased was a little low during the pandemic, but it increased afterwards. So hopefully this is a trend that will continue. And we also will hopefully see revenue increase in the contracted camps. The revenue that was taken in this year was very high, though I don't want to match that. I'm taking a 3-year average and slowly increasing that over time. And again, the camps were very popular, and we're hoping that trend keeps on going, but we're also looking at the fact that some other places were not open yet compared to us last year. People were still, getting vaccinated and staying close to home, so hopefully they've found a lot of what we do is a good opportunity, and they'll continue to do that. Under expenses, see a significant increase in our day camp salaries and our seasonal salaries.
Todd, sorry, one question on revenues.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but pick up on the change in the field use.
Yep, that's under parks.
Oh, okay.
And I will, yep, I got that.
Sorry.
No, that's
Sorry.
okay. I got that talking down here under
Yeah.
parks. So again, under day camp salaries and seasonal salaries, it's getting harder and harder to hire quality people at the lower end of the pay scale, so we're looking to increase that. But at the same point in time, the revenue that we take in, the day camp salaries and the day camp fees, does not go higher than the revenue that we're taking in. So we look for camps to break even, if not make a little bit of money, sort of a thing. And then advertising, we're decreasing that because I'm moving the program guides out of this line item of advertising and putting them into the 4 program areas so that programs pay for the program guides. And we did a test last year of a 3-fold program guide that we mailed home, and that was about this time with camps and stuff like that, and we did see a little bit of increase. So another way of putting information in front of people and them reacting to that and registering. So we're feeling that programs need to sustain themselves. So the revenue, so it's kind of pay to play. People that are paying for registration, paying for programs, that money is going back into the program in many different ways. And this is one of them, advertising. Did a little bit of a decrease to the day camps. To the day camp expenses, because just looking again the 3 years average and also looking to increase the salaries a little bit. Contracted camp increase because we also increased the revenue. So, but also contracted camps, we add a price on to whatever the instructor wants. So contracted camps and contracted programs are always a revenue plus. If we took in $100 and I'm paying an instructor $80, we're making $20. We don't have any other expense, so that's a positive. And then special events increased by about 2,500, and this was due to the fireworks company had a minimum amount that they want, that you needed to spend to have, and they're all doing this, and that is because of material and staffing shortages that go on. But know that we'll be presenting to you probably later this month or so a sponsorship and advertising. So I'm looking to bring in hopefully a lot of sponsorships with area businesses here in Williston to help offset that 4th of July and other things that we do. And we have a whole packet of great opportunities for businesses to sponsor and advertise with us here at Recreation. So that is the recreation side of the budgets, revenues and expenses. Any
Questions on back part?
No, not so far.
All right. On the park side of the operating budget.
I have a question. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And maybe it's not the right place for it because it's more of a policy question, but are we doing, are we still engaging in trying to get the word out? Well, let me ask, do we have an abatement program for people, like kids who want to do day camps, kids who want to do the rec programs, but their families don't have the money to pay the expense?
Yes, we have a financial scholarship fund, and we actually have the ability now through our program, through our website where you register for a program. Every month, if you go on to register, if you go on today and you go on tomorrow, you won't see it again. You see it another month, but at the very end, it says, would you like to make a donation to the program scholarship fund? And it starts off at $5 and people can put whatever they want. And I just started it like the end of October. And I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I've seen people hitting it compared to it being on our site and having to go there. So we are bringing in money with that. I would say right now we're probably, with the scholarship money we had before, we're probably close to $2,000 just in scholarship money. But then in a program, looking at that, we always build in on the budget, it'll say like camp expenses, or not revenue, it'll say revenue, and maybe it's $120,000 we're gonna bring in, but I say 7 or 8 of that is scholarship, so I'm actually only gonna bring in about 112, sort of a thing. So we build it into the program, plus we have the opportunity for families or individuals to give to the scholarship fund. And that's on our website as well, that people can apply for them.
Is there a big demand for?
There is not, no. And I don't know why that is. We work with the schools, so if caseworkers or social workers or guidance counselors have a family, they'll come to us, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's about transportation. It's about being able to get to a basketball practice or whatever else. We'll see more scholarships in the summertime, and we'll see more scholarships in the ski and ride program where they're right at school, and we can bring them and then bring them back, and then the parents can pick them up. But getting to basketball or a soccer, especially if we're playing out of town, we don't see as many as I'd like to see.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Todd, if I could just follow up, from what I heard, it sounds like you feel that the need for scholarships or financial assistance is being met. You bring in enough revenue to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right, under the parks side of the budget, of the operating budget, the revenue, the field use fees, during the pandemic, our fields were still open. We were taking groups in where other places were saying no, so we saw the revenue shoot up. But then after we've seen it kind of steady out, and it's stayed right up there, so I'm proposing to double the revenue that we're bringing in. And on that, I'll jump kind of to the end, but we've always had park maintenance and upgrade of about 30,000, and that's gone into everything that has to do with the parks. And what I'm proposing is the park maintenance and upgrades stays with the parks, so that anything that's has to do with park restroom, skate park, ice rink, that type of thing, anything that's to do with the park is taken care of by this park maintenance. And that line item, we decreased it from 30,000 down to 20,000. But then what I'm proposing is a new line item called athletic field maintenance. And I propose that we'll be bringing in $18,000.
Okay.
And spending $17,000. I'd like to have a little bit of a buffer there. But the athletic field maintenance is $18,000 is coming from groups and organizations that rent our fields. So we're taking that money that they give us and putting it back into the fields that they're playing on. So soccer fields, baseball fields. We have MOUs with Williston Little League and the Williston Soccer Club, that $10 fee per child on their it's like soccer club goes spring and fall, so $10 of the registered child comes to us as a field use fee, and it would go back into the fields that they're using. So again, it's that pay to play. We are taking the money that we are collecting from those that are using our fields, overusing our fields, some would say, but they're there for an organized purpose, and we're taking that money and we're putting it right back into the fields and the field maintenance. Field maintenance, I figured out to be about $15,000 to $16,000 a year, and that's painting them, lining them, that's mowing them, it's buying grass seed and fertilization and stuff like that. So that is definitely two things that are key on that is decreasing the park maintenance, but then adding the new line item, and the new line item again would be 17,000. The other two things is the maintenance salaries. Again, it's, we had a 30-hour a week for about 32 or 34, and looking to up that to 40 hours a week. Just giving people more of an option. And again, it's getting harder and harder to find people that want to work part-time, let alone seasonal. So this way we can say, hey, it's a full-time position, but it's a 40-hour position, but a seasonal position. So it's not full-time, but it's a little bit more hours and stuff like that. And then the other one is the park equipment, and that's due to, we're increased about, looking for about $1,000. That's due to purchasing electric equipment. And we purchased an electric blower this year, have on order a electric mower, hand mower, to help out with some of the bigger trimming areas, and electric equipment is expensive. So to be able, and we're looking, we had a manual blower, or a gas-powered blower that died, so we looked to replace that blower with an electric one. So that's what we'll do with equipment as it gets older and we can't fix it anymore, is we'll look to purchase electric equipment, sort of thing. So that kind of wraps up the operating budget for recreation and parks.
So any questions for Tom?
Did I answer your question, Jeff, about the revenue and?
Yes, I see what's going on now.
On the capital expenditures, I think you started on page 29. Only the ones that have appropriations.
49,
Parks improvement.
parks improvement, yep. So the parks, I'll speak of parks improvement and parks replacement. You've always given the same amount each year, where we have collected that and spend a portion of that. What we have done this year is parks improvements, which would be new things in parks, was normally around 20,000. We dropped that to 15,000, and the parks replacement is replacing stuff that we currently have. We upped that one from 15 to 20,000. So we kind of just swapped. It's not an increase or whatever, but we swapped those amounts, because what we're finding is we're at a point, I mean, we can always add new improvements, but we're getting to that point where we got to take care of the things that we've been putting in the park, so we can need some money, more money on the side of replacements. Going back to parks improvements, next year we're looking to surface what is currently the rink area. We put up hoops there, but we would look to surface that for a basketball court with lines. And we would look to put in a top playground amenity. So over the top playground area at the Village Community Park, I've moved some of the play structures around in hopes to put in kind of like a merry-go-round that's inclusive and ADA accessible and allow handicap, which we don't really have those items in that top playground right now. The playground itself does have a transfer that children can use, handicap can use and such, but this playground would, this merry-go-round type of structure would add that to that. So that's what we're looking to do for improvements. So doing the courts would help, would keep the court surface from cracking and stuff. And we've seen a lot of use since we've put basketball hoops over there. And if anybody's aware or wants to know, the ice rink went in Friday. So it's almost ready. Couple more cold days and we'll have some good ice over there. Under parks replacement, going back to the toddler playground over at Village Community Park, that the fence needs replacing, and I can replace the fence completely, which would be probably 3 times the price I have here, or we can use the pieces and parts of that playground, of that fencing that's already around that playground, and shorten the area, which right now it's huge and it doesn't need to be as big. You got little kids, with short legs, and they're running from one thing to the other. It's a little bit closer together for them. So we're thinking about moving the swing set forward and taking that back section, cutting it down, and using pieces and parts that are good there on other parts of the fence that needs fixing, and then it just all needs to be settled back in because it's frost heaved up and it's very wet in that area. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do there. The volleyball court netting behind the courts that blocks the courts from the houses in that wooded area, that netting is becoming very, very old and frail. So we're looking to replace the bottom portion of that with a chain link fence, which would actually make it easier to trim around. And then we would use the current netting and continue to use it, but lift it up. So we have like a 4-foot fence, 3 or 4 foot fence all the way across, and then we'd have netting for the remaining of the height. And the only other thing that we have for replacement is replacing the parking lot fence at Rosenau. And that would be it's the front portion of the fencing right next to the street. It's very old. The round posts are starting to, one is rot away, the other ones are rotting away. And the back side near the park, that fencing is fairly new, before my time, but it is fairly new and it's different than that front. So just finishing that off. And that would be the capitals for those two. And then we just put in the basketball hoops down at Rosenau as well, so that whole surfacing, hard surface in the basketball is complete down there. And this fencing would pretty much complete work at Rosenau for improvements. So those are the two things that we're looking at for that. Did you want me to talk about the Allenbrook at all?
Yeah, I can help with that too.
That looks pretty,
One of the things on capital, page 85 and 86. There's parks, tractors and mowers.
Yep, parks, tractors, and mowers, pretty much staying the same. We're replacing the Kubota tractor, this year, well, actually, 2023, and, we've increased it a little bit there. We've down the life cycle of the tractors and the zero turns were 8 years, a few years back, and I've slowly brought them down to 6, because we can get a better trade-in value with it less. The tractor, we're getting a great trade-in value, but it's at that point where if we weren't doing a new tractor, we'd be putting money into the tractor. So all of these kinds of things, they work very hard, and it's better to trade them out while they're still new and fresh, rather than putting a lot of money into them that we won't get back in trade-ins. We put money into them, the longer they go, the less trade-in we get, so it's a loss around. So that's the key things on that. And the pickup truck, I don't think that one's changed at all. And that one's not due out until 2027.
Just 4,000 as we usually do every year, so.
What's that?
Just 4,000 each year.
Yes, yep. So that, yep. And it's 9,500, which that was increased a little bit because the zero-turn mowers, the tractor, and this new tractor we're getting is a step up from the tractor that we currently have in size and power, because we're doing more with it and needed to have that happen as well.
Any questions on capital before we go on to Ellen?
Just about with the tractors and the pickup truck and things, have you looked into doing EV for those? Is that an option to do electric for the?
So it's not on the tractors.
Okay.
Haven't looked that closely at vehicles yet, because it's 2027.
Right.
But also the zero-turn mowers this last year or so, we've done a couple. There was a year or so ago, there was a EV tractor, not mowers and whatever else at South Burlington. We visited that. And our VRPA, which is the State Recreation Association, has a maintenance workshop, and there was some at that. So yeah, we have looked at that. And what we're hearing right now is it's new, it's fresh, wait a little while, and because they're always improving and whatever else. And we had the CCR bring a couple Toros over, and that one, the Toro, to me, seemed to be very similar to what we have now. And we have Kubotas, but I mean in that you know, they took a Toro gas powered, and they're now figuring out how to make it, but it's not on the market yet. They're figuring out how to make it. So other ones we're seeing, oh, well, hey, here's a EV, we've made this. But Toro is kind of saying, well, we're taking what we've done so well, and we're trying to figure out how to make it electric, sort of a thing. So those are like the other equipment, when we're looking for trade-ins or whatever else, or when it comes for years for replacement, I should say, we're looking to do that. That's definitely things that we're looking for. Yep.
On the pickup truck side too, and Bruce can speak more of this with his budget, but we look at the state contract to purchase a lot of those vehicles, and I know state procurement, last time we checked, didn't start to have more of the EV availability under the state contract. We anticipate that's going to change in the year to come, but I think last time we looked, we just had kind of a really low compact vehicle, not one of these more robust vehicles that are becoming available, so.
I got information hot off the press today.
Oh, I won't take Bruce's news.
We're going to talk about Allen Brook.
Sure. Yeah, so Allenbrook Community Park, the revitalization of the master plan was completed in the springtime. So I have a beautiful maps on my wall that I like to look at and dream about. We have about $40,000 to $50,000 for engineering in this year's budget. And then there's 800 you see in 2025, and that is what we have in rec impact fees to hopefully move forward. And once we hire an engineering company and engineer phase one, what's it gonna cost, or we'll better know that if this number is in the ballpark, or if we need to whittle things back to this number, or look for grants and other things to get that phase one done. Phase one, currently now there's 2 multi-purpose fields there. Phase one would give us our own entrance, stormwaters, buffers, all this and that. It would turn one of those fields into a parking lot. We would have the other field, and then what I've proposed is that we take another area, which is not until phase 3, synthetic lighted turf, all the bells and whistles, but take that and just make it a grass turf, so that we have the same thing we have currently now, 2 multi-purpose fields, but then with our own access and parking closer to those fields. The second phase would be the more of the community park elements of playgrounds and courts and bathrooms and such. And then the final phase would be the baseball diamonds and, again, that synthetic lighted turf type of thing. So it's kind of what the future is of looking at Allenbrook. And I'm excited that we finished the study and we're hopefully jumping right into, getting the project going rather than just having the study sit on the shelf.
So I'm on page 48, and I'm trying to understand the capital budget for Allenbrook Community Park, because it shows $800,000 in 2025, not the next budget, but a future budget, and none in this year's budget. I just want to make sure I'm reading that correctly.
Yep, that's correct. In FY '23, we, in the current capital budget, we have the funding for the engineering, design work. So
Okay.
working off that scoping vision plan. So that'll give us a vision for what it's going to look like. And then we're not sure when that work's going to be completed, so we didn't put it in '24. But given this is impact fee funds, there's potential to move up the timeline. I'd come back to the board to look to amend the plan, but we have.
Okay.
And this sheet, I was looking at it just before the meeting. We have an unfinished capital project sheet that's further in the front of your binder, and that's where we identify the impact fee funds. So
Okay.
and we're predicting additional funds coming in over the next year too. So the scope will be a work in progress here in the next few months.
Okay, good.
The idea is we're looking for engineers right now, so if that work is done, say into the spring or whatever else, we're looking to next fall to what can we do in that 25 budget to get started.
Okay.
And that may be paring back phase one or finding grants to complete phase one.
Okay.
Type of thing. So that's why it sits there. So the nice thing is there's nothing in next year's budget for Allenbrook.
Well, yes, and I'm just trying to understand it. Okay, and the 800 is sort of a placeholder for phase one, if you will.
Right,
Yeah.
and if the timeline was able to be moved up and could potentially start this project in '24, we'd bring it back to the board to amend the capital plan.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, moving to Public Works, Bruce Oliver.
They just wanted to show up.
So we're doing operating budget first and then capital after.
Okay, thanks, Todd. I told Todd earlier, since he was going before me, not to get you guys upset or anything. He just said he didn't make you mad, so.
We hide it, actually.
All right, so operating, let's see. Give me just a second, please. You know, I put this together earlier, I always think I have it in such good shape and order and everything else.
It's a huge budget.
What I'm looking for, actually, and we'll talk about it all anyway, is my transmittal.
You have the page numbers, Bruce, it's 140.
It's 140,
Yep, looks like you printed out the different sections there.
140?
Yep,
Looks like you might have capital budget there.
I don't have it then with me. I know, I have it pretty much, I know I saw it. Thank you. Make sure I'm even in the right ones here, not. Yeah, no, it's operating. Okay, thank you, Shirley. So, in my transmittal, I just pointed out where some of the increases are. Once again, the paving line item, we're asking for 10,000. Ask for that every year to try to keep that number up. And we'll talk a little bit more about that then. This was the highest year ever for paving cost, which isn't unexpected, I guess, given what's going on. A lot of this then is, talking about our gravel roads and the work we've been doing on those. A lot of that work's been happening with grants because of the stormwater permitting and stuff. So even though we're doing a lot of work there, we're getting a lot of money back, actually, to help offset some of that. But the big one in here is, in this year's budget, asking for a stipend for on-call people. We've never had that. We've been very fortunate in the town of Williston. Well, we're very fortunate anyway to have the great employees that we have in Public Works. But what it's either been the highway foreman, and it's going to end up, even though we're not talking about water and sewer now, it's going to be the same kind of thing for them, is they take the call 24/7 without any compensation for having that phone with them. So this would put a rotation in line with 2 people on call in the wintertime that could come in here a little bit faster because they know they're on call, they have to be available. Right now, the guys go home at 3:30, even though we say, and they all know wintertime they could be called at any time. There's nothing to say that they can't go home and have a few beers or something and not be able to get hold of them. Or they should be responsible enough to say, I went out to dinner, I had a couple drinks, I can't come in for a couple hours. They have to do that. This would give us 2 people on call that cannot make that kind of, they know for that time during that week, they have to be available. We're one of the few communities that don't do that. So this would just be to make people available for emergencies, and we know we can get hold of them. Has it happened in Williston? Once or twice since I've been here, that we just haven't been able to get hold of people. And when I say that, that means certainly they could get hold of me,
Yeah.
and there may have been somebody else I was able to track down or something. Doesn't happen very often, but this would eliminate that, and once again, awards, for lack of a better term, people for being on call and taking that responsibility. It would be 2 in the wintertime and 1 in the summertime. Right now, even though we're not talking about water and sewer budget, water and sewer does have an on-call on the weekends. But Aaron, the foreman or supervisor, as his title is now, answers that call all week long without any other kind of compensation. So it's just trying to make it fair and
Yeah.
reasonable, for lack of a better term.
Bruce, before you move off that subject, I totally get it. In the wintertime, when the highway department knows they're gonna, they're gonna have to man the plows. Storm's coming, they're gonna have to man the plows. Are they on, is that considered on-call? No.
There's nothing in, once again, they all know that they're, one of the biggest parts of their job is to be available in the wintertime for snow plowing.
Okay.
But there's nothing to say when they leave here at 3:30, we're not paying them, we're not, I mean, it's just because they're good employees and understand that's part of their responsibility. And of course, they make good money
Yeah.
when they come in to be plowing, but there's nothing, if we can't get a hold of them, we have no recourse to say,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah, where were you?
Right.
Okay.
So, and once again, we would still be able to get hold of most of the crew in the wintertime, but this is, I mean, a freak storm comes through, they're not expecting it or whatever. We're all human beings, we all deserve to have a little time off, and so that's all this does.
Okay. I guess maybe asking the question a little bit differently, now that this concept is out there, is 2 enough in the wintertime?
Well, we only have 8.
Well,
So, yeah, I mean, 2, even if so, first of all, I don't think in the wintertime we would ever run into the situation where I just said we really couldn't find a couple people. Because once again, they're all responsible, they realize what's going on. But this would be 2 people that right away, we need to get somebody in here to go salt some bad roads faster. They know they might get that call, they're ready to come in, they get in here and they get that work going, or they can start salting even before the rest of the crew gets here to help get some things done. So if you do it on that kind of rotation, we're supposed to have 8 people, right now we have 7, so it's only, they're committing to, a week a month maybe or something, that they know they have to be. And once again, get compensated for that trouble.
okay.
So, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you wanted to put them all on call, Jeff. I mean, pay them all for that, but that's not reasonable, and that's not
Okay.
what anybody else does.
All right. Okay, good, thanks.
Agency of Transportation's had this in place for ages, so.
On-call
Town
staff.
Finally started to do it. It makes sense.
Had it in South Burlington before I came here, so that's why I say we've been very fortunate, Williston, in that we've had people that have just, those supervisors, and not, I'm always on call, 24/7, whatever, that just comes with the job, I get that. But that doesn't mean I don't have a few glasses of wine or a couple beers in the night either or something, but, so this once again just makes it so we know we can get hold of people in a real emergency. A bad accident and the police need barricades or something. These guys get in here and get that stuff together and, a little bit faster than making phone calls. Hey, can you come in? Hey, can you come in? Whatever. So,
Another thing Bruce and I talked about with this part of the budget proposal was we want to try to maintain being competitive with our other towns, especially with a vacant position we've advertised. It's, like Bruce said, we're great. We have great employees we're fortunate to have, but we've lost 1 or 2 with other positions available. We're not getting a lot of applicants at times to fill open positions, and trying to make sure we can stay competitive with everyone who is trying to use a small labor pool to fill vital positions in their communities.
that's what's going on in our industry right now is these guys can go anywhere they want to go. They really can. There's so many people looking for other people. And our highway supervisor that we just hired came from another town. And certainly I would never go to a person in another town and say, hey, you want a job? But if they come to us, we're certainly going to talk to them. But it doesn't help any of us to just keep trading people.
Yeah.
So, anyway. So, the whole budget increase for highway is around 3.8%, which I think is actually pretty good, given what's going on. Trying to keep in mind that, you know, we have to have increases, but still trying to be realistic as to where the money comes from. So, I want you to have this back, Shirley, because you might have to bail me out as I talk. I have the rest of it, thank you. So, Public Works. There aren't any line items that have huge increases. There's my transmittal, I know I have it. So, I'm sorry? Page 142? Yeah, I had it, I just couldn't find it. So, page 142, yes, is the first page of the operating budget, really, for the highway. And just keeping in the way I've always done things in the past, just pointing out where there's really major changes, is some of the bigger changes are in administration and payroll. If you go down though and look at equipment rental, if you wanted to look at the actual box, it's on page 149, but you'll see that we have no money in there for fiscal year '24. And that's because even though we call it equipment rental, what it was or is when we used to act as a property management company, for lack of a better term, and do a pass-through where we would hire a contractor to go do plowing of private roads. We are no longer doing that. And quite honestly, I'm looking at, we still have a private contractor that does about 3 miles of roads for us. And I'm hoping this is the last winter we have that happening. I'd like to try to take all that back in-house next year. But that does come with being at full staff as well. What Eric said earlier is definitely true. We've got one position open. We've gotten one application for it. And that person was up in the Northeast Kingdom or somewhere. I mean, we've even relaxed the distance on highway and public works. You're supposed to be within 25 miles, and we've had to relax that. But you still have to have some distance. I mean, it can't be 50 or 60 miles or, you know, I mean, it's got to be within reason still. So, so that's a place actually where we're saving some money out of that budget. Sand, we have up a little bit, that's on page 150, but it's going from 14.4 to 16.2, so it's not a huge increase. Retreatment, 500,000 to 510,000. As I said earlier, this was the most expensive year, I think, in my career that we've paid for paving. It was $88 a ton. Last year it was in the 70s. I'm using 90 for next year's numbers for estimates, but we're really hoping that things are going to settle down and that will come down some. That was definitely driven by the inflation. The cost of liquid asphalt is actually what drives that cost. Our bid was actually $81.10 a ton, but then when they give us that number, it's based on whatever the liquid asphalt cost is then, and then there's a clause that says if it goes above a certain percentage, they can get some money for that. And this year it took our cost to $88 a ton. We were still hopefully still able to get everything done. We didn't get 2 of the roads done that were supposed to be done. Maple Tree Place Road was supposed to be done, and Chelsea Common. In the springtime, we'll look at the prices, because we obviously still have that money, and hopefully we can get both of them done. If we can't, we're gonna get Chelsea Common done for sure. And if we have a little money left over, we might go look at another little road here or there to do if we can't get Maple Tree Place done, which means that'll get shifted. And one of the reasons, even though Eric's been very nice and not asked me for it, that's why you don't have a 5-year paving plan right now either. Because I'm still in the process of trying to put that together and see what that's gonna look like. But I will produce one for you. Highway line striping is down in this budget, and that's because in capital, you'll see we're asking for some equipment. We're going to go into the painting business, as much as I didn't want to, but we just don't have any choice. There were only 2 painting companies that did highway or road work kind of painting in the state of Vermont. One of them decided he's done. He's done planning traffic, is exactly what he said. I don't blame him. The other one didn't even bid on our line striping for this year. The company that I finally did get in here, at least get some lines done, was out of Massachusetts. So we've reduced this because we're still gonna have to bid out our long lines, center lines, or white edge lines will have to be done. If we can get the equipment, we'll be able to do turn bars, stop bars, turn arrows, stop bars, lane lines, those kind of things ourselves. Crosswalks. And we've gotten a lot of flack because crosswalks aren't done, and deservedly so to some extent, except that we're a victim of the economy like everybody else, and we just couldn't get anybody to do it. So. Pedestrian path paving, I brought that down $5,000. One of the reasons is we've actually done quite a bit of paving, but this will still allow us to do some more as they start to need it. And that's it for any real major changes in the highway budget.
Jeff, thank you. Any questions for Bruce regarding the plan? One thing, are you planning to give us a 5-year plan for paving again? You have it every year, so it's kind of handy to have.
No, I will. That's one of the things I'm working on yet, Terry, because of, I'm just waiting, trying to get a feel for what we're gonna be able to get done in the, because that's gonna, if I have to move Maple Tree Place to next year, that's gonna take, $100,000 out of that budget. It was supposed to come out of this one. So, and once again, and you all know it, the paving plan, that 5-year plan is fluid anyway. Depends on what we get for numbers, grants, those kind of things. One of the things Eric and I got some calls about this year was Mountain View Road, and, it wasn't supposed to get done, and blah, blah, blah. Well, we got a grant, so we moved it and got done the section we got done.
Very nice, very smooth.
Yeah, thank you.
Over on capital. 29.
Yeah, so capital, I'll just start with the buildings part of it. The fire, so this is page 29. Fire protection, the old brick church. Money in there to do some design work to hopefully go to, I believe we're talking about going to bond.
Yeah, most likely looking 2 years down the road.
In 25. So that's what that one is about. Old brick church chimney. The chimney at the very top of the church is in very bad shape and needs to be repointed. Actually, it'll end up probably being rebuilt. So that's what that one's about. And as always, I'll only talk about the ones that are actually in this budget year. If you have any questions about the other ones that are in here still, that's fine. 33 doesn't have any money in '24. I asked for it, but Eric didn't put any in there. So then, the next is sidewalks, roads, sidewalks, bridges. Obviously, we all know the big thing, one of the big things that was done this last year and finished and is quite nice is the Muddy Brook Bridge project, culvert project. If you want to see some really neat graffiti, go down and walk down over the sides.
What page?
I'm just, 39 is the narrative for roads, sidewalks, and bridges.
Okay.
Sorry about that. This one just tells you, you know, what we have for the most part, what's been done. We are working on removing ash trees. Started in Brennan Woods today, Chamberlain Lane. I think there's gonna be 20 some of those we're gonna take out right now. Brennan Woods actually has quite a few ash trees throughout that whole neighborhood. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, especially in neighborhoods. You know, it really wasn't so bad on Marshall or Harvest or even Maple Tree Place. But once you start getting into neighborhoods, and the calls I got today was, "You're taking my tree." So once you explain to them, no, not really, and tell them the whole situation, and everybody was fine. And when I say everybody, I got 3 phone calls today. The HOA did help get the word out. So, or was requested to help get the word out about taking those trees. So that's where we're at with that program at this point. We have put in for a grant that hopefully we will get. We've been pretty successful at that. If we do, we'll be planting 42 trees in the springtime. So that'll take care of Maple Tree Place and these ones we're taking out of Chamberlain, if we're successful. So then, page 41, minor transportation improvements. That's just a pot of money we have for things that pop up that we may not be planning on so much. You can see the list there of what that money has been used for over the years. And now the big one, I'm on page 76, which is large in all the big capital now for highway. 77 is large highway truck rotational. Our big plow trucks. They're going up just like everything else. And so that's what this number's for, just to keep us on our rotation. We ordered the truck for this fiscal year that we're in back in March, as soon as the budget was over. And the best they would do was say, if you order a truck now from us, we will tell you that it'll go into the cycle in the beginning of January and be built in that quarter. But they didn't tell if it was going to be in the beginning of the quarter or the end of the quarter. Usually we would have ordered a truck like that after budget approval in March, and we would see it in October. So that's what's happening with that kind of stuff right now. So that's what that capital's for. 78 is large highway equipment. Just what it says for our bigger equipment, sidewalk plows, those kind of things. You'll see in there that I've removed 2 items. One is the brush hog, and the other is the John Deere tractor. The John Deere tractor is the big green tractor that you see doing roadsides. It's the only thing we use that thing for. We also have another piece of equipment, our sidewalk machine, our trackless machine that can do roadside mowing. So I couldn't see any reason why we would go buy another tractor when we have another piece of equipment that we can do the same thing with. So that helps those numbers out a little bit. And the trackless, the sidewalk machine, for the most part, was only used for sidewalk plowing. We are using it now to grind tree stumps. But, I mean, it is a piece of equipment that's made to run year-round and do that kind of stuff, so. Once again, though, we only have one of those, so if something happens to that machine, sidewalks won't be getting done. And we aren't, I'll be totally honest, we are nursing it right now. We're hoping to get it through the winter. We had a problem with it, we sent it to New Hampshire, we trucked it to New Hampshire ourselves, had a repair made, brought it back, seemed to be okay, and now it seems to be having a problem again. It's a $14,000 fix to replace the transmission. And I don't know when we'd even get it done and get it back here, so we're going to keep using it. And hopefully we don't have to use the snow blower on it too much this winter. So.
You get tired with your shovel out there, Bruce.
Yeah.
We did what?
I said, you get tired with your shovel out there.
Yeah, you're right. You mean Bruce will retire? Anyway, so highway pickup replacement. And this goes into a little bit of the EV discussion. And I meant it when I said I had something hot off the press. We went today to pick up a new pickup for water and sewer. So two things. We went today to pick up a new pickup for water and sewer. And when we were looking at buying our stormwater vehicle, which was in the budget for this year, I did go to the state contract looking for EVs. They did have some on there, but they were the real little cars, you know, and I can't even remember the names, but they weren't any kind of all-wheel drive vehicle, which is something we would need to have. So I did find one finally on there and got hold of the gentleman that deals with all the state contracts and said, find me this kind of vehicle or the equivalent. He tried, he put an order in, and came back and said, we can't fill it. So we couldn't buy one if we wanted to. Next year, so picking up the pickup today, I asked him, I said, when are we going to be able to get electric pickups? Oh, next year. I just came from a meeting last week. Next year. $80,000. I said, that's the state contract bid? Yep, they're not going to give you any breaks. So we can pay $27,000 or we can pay $80,000. So I'm just putting that out there that we're trying to stay on top of it. We're keeping, you know, as close a tab as we can on it. And I don't doubt the EVs are probably going to cost us a little bit more when it comes to pickups and stuff, but that's a big difference over 7 years' time. So that's where we're at with that right now. So the highway pickup replacement is just that. It's just to keep our fleet of our pickups that our supervisors use. Buildings and grounds facility mower. I was interested to listen to Todd because this was one of the places I was really going to look hard for a, electric, and I still will. But I haven't found anything that looks real great yet, but I think if anywhere, that's going to be the first place we find stuff. So we'll keep working on that way. So that was on page 80, I'm sorry, I keep going, but, so we've been through 79 and 80, page-wise. 81 is signal replacements. That's just to keep making changes to our traffic signals that we have down Marshall Avenue. Those 4 intersections that we own, 5 intersections that we own down through there. Page 84 is the next one with any kind of money in it. That's the variable message boards. We own a few of those, but we would like to update them. The good news is ours are old enough that somebody can't drive down the road and program something into them. So we shouldn't see any special messages on ours, unless it's one of our own people that did it to us. But anyway, we do that. That's what that about. That is what that is about. To upgrade those, update them, and then 87 is the line and pavement marking machine. I alluded to a little bit earlier, saying that we're going to go into the painting business, or would like to, and actually kind of need to. Our highway supervisor that we just hired is actually the grandson of the gentleman that started Scott's Line Striping, who was a Williston business and only other one of the 2 line painters in the state of Vermont. So he at least knows how to do that, if nothing else. So anyway, that's what that's for, so we can start doing, like I said, our own crosswalks, stop bars, turn arrows, those kind of things. And the only thing we'll have to have out to bid are long lines, keeping in mind that the state does all the center line marking on Class 2 town highways. They don't do white edge lines, but they do the center lines. So, then we still have plenty of center line road to do. South Road, Maple Tree Place is not a Class 2, so we would have those kind of roads that we still have to be responsible for.
So, any questions for Bruce?
Okay, Terry, if I could just add, proposal from Public Works and Parks Division, looking at additional items for the budget is looking at staffing in Buildings and Grounds Division and Parks Division in the coming years. Bruce and Todd made a request. I wasn't able to include it in your budget, just looking at the bottom lines, but certainly to be aware of in the next budget cycle too is the needing to have additional staffing in our Buildings and Grounds Division. We have some part-time staff right now. We know there's going to be some transitioning moving forward, but there's certainly going to be a work demand that we're already facing year-round in those divisions. So it's something we're going to keep looking at a staff level and other items, how we clean our facilities. We have some contracts there as well, and see what that may be able to bring to the board in the future. But it's certainly a need that we're seeing, and just with challenges this year, I didn't leave any new positions proposed in the budget, just some hour increases for existing positions, but just to make the board aware of that. That was something I didn't fund in my proposal.
Okay. And water and sewer comes later, right?
About April.
Okay.
You still gonna be here, Jeff?
What's that? Oh. No. We'll see.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bruce.
So we do have general administration on the schedule this week, that we had enough time to do that.
Sure, if the board would like to, probably shouldn't take too much time, hopefully. Do you want to start with manager or finance, Terry? Would you like to start with manager's budget or finance budget?
Start with the manager.
Sure. So this also includes your select board budget, so there's not a lot of items in that piece of it. It does include some of your contracts, I believe, for the audit service. Let's get my page up here. The major items in the manager's budget falling under some of our general categories. First, I'd like to just speak about IT. That's certainly a largest increase in this budget operationally. The last couple of years, we've certainly had to do a lot of flexing on the IT front, figuring out with the pandemic and then post-pandemic, and then also being aware of cybersecurity and protecting our network and our files for our staff and our town documents. So our vendors been very good to us throughout the pandemic. They didn't increase their rates at all during the pandemic, but last year they did. We're faced with an increase, like most professional services. So that affects us a bit. We also audited all our computer systems that we needed to have a contract for IT support. We're trying to cycle out older computers and not have a contract on these older ones. We do keep one or two backups. We bought a laptop just as a backup admin computer if someone has an issue, warranty, and they're going to lose their workstation. We have one storage upstairs here that they will use in the interim so they can not be have a disruption in their work computer. So we built in additional cybersecurity measures as well, recommended some things from our vendor looking at two-factor authentication. We have a tool if someone is remoting in to access our server. We have two-factor set up for that during the pandemic, but we also, it's recommended additional two-factor in-house, and they have some tools set up for that. So that's built into there, those increased managed service costs. We benefited through Vermont League of Cities and Towns using a tool called KnowBe4. This is a piece of software where it sends everybody an email every couple of weeks, and these are based on phishing emails where they're potential scams, and they kind of scan to see what are the scams that are out there right now, and it's training our staff to not click on those links. A lot of them they aren't all saying, send me $500 in gift cards so I can get out of prison in a foreign country, those type of scams, but ones that are more playing into that kind of social engineering and what's going on, because we've seen it in some towns in Vermont, other municipalities in the country, where you can have ransomware where it results when someone clicked on a link and it infected the whole system with that malware and ransomware. So we've been doing this for a couple years now. It's good feedback from staff. They'll even get one that they say, what's going on with this email? I said, well, you should take a close look at it. Maybe it's a training email, or you don't want to have a phishing email. So if someone does click on the link, they are brought to a refresher training for a couple minutes about what they clicked on, some things to watch out for. So that's proved very helpful. BLCT's covered that through our passive funds. So that's something, one of the things we're doing, but we've got to stay on top of this. It's emerging out there with the cybersecurity piece for our network. So our network is, physical infrastructure is secure in our police station, but it's all these blind spots we're trying to be aware of, especially looking for more remote work moving forward for some staff. Part of our operational procedure we're looking at is kind of a robust IT security as part of that ability to work from home. So all these items we're looking at. So that's certainly a big piece of the jump here. Increased legal a little bit just on actual costs the last couple of years, a few $1,000s. As we spoke with the police budget as well, looking for some professional service funding towards the police department assessment and management study. I put some of that in the manager's budget for FY24 here as well. Those were the major items in that cost center. And then just generally along too, increases for contracts and building maintenance that we split among departments.
Any questions for Eric?
No, looks.
Okay, do you have any capital expenses?
I think I just have the server, and I think there's nothing in next year's budget.
Next year.
I think I have a sheet for our community center library project. I haven't put any funding in it right now for next year because we're doing that study right now, but I think as that work wraps up, the board and library trustees will have some decisions to make on the pathway there.
So we need to do finance now.
So I'm not going to say a page number because mine was the first one we printed and we had some blank pages we were playing with, Eric, so.
Starts on page 63.
There we go.
63 in the big book.
Okay. I didn't renumber mine. So because I already have the transmittal, I'm just going to hit on the highlights for you. Office, so I'm starting with the listers department. So the real change there is in office equipment. That's really just we need a computer replacement in FY24. So that's the big change, other than wages and benefits. In finance, other than COLA and merit, we have a part-time position that is presently budgeted for 16 hours. We haven't filled it. I hope to do that, to start that process in January. And really the purpose of that is twofold, is that Mary is the treasurer and she has no backup right now. I can't back her up for internal control, so I can't do receipting because I reconcile cash. So that position was designed to become the assistant treasurer, and if Mary wants to take vacation, then we're looking for someone who's flexible, willing to work full-time, maybe 1 week while Mary's out, or a day or whatever, so that way transactions can continue to be posted, cash out at the end of the day, deposit to the bank, and to take over some of Mary's responsibilities in terms of the miscellaneous AR billing she does, and to help with some finance tasks. So if you were in this summer, you might have seen that we have, the last couple summers, we have, she's a teacher actually, and her name was Samara, and she came in and worked for us, and she helped with budget projects and some chart of accounts cleanup and stuff. So that position is in the budget for 16 hours right now, but I need more help. And so the plan is to up it to 25 hours in the FY24 budget, again, put more of Mary's work in there so I can get more of Mary's time and to just sort of share the workload a little bit more, let's just say that. So that is probably the biggest change in the finance department budget. And in computer applications, that looks like it's up a lot, but really it's just, we hope, they're probably not gonna make it in FY23. There's some money in the town manager's budget for a payroll software, just a time reporting system so we can get rid of manual timesheets. But it's just been so busy, I'm not optimistic that will happen in FY23, so hopefully in FY24 that will happen. And the building maintenance, that is, you saw that the manager's budget, the clerk's budget, and finance share the cost of the maintenance for this building, and that's just the increases from inflationary expenses. And that is really it for me. Not much to it, and the numbers haven't changed a lot.
I would just echo Shirley with, the load on it. We have a great finance and HR team here, but we're finding the, I'll call it central administrative load of the town is increasing with, additional staffing we've added, additional complexities, and, we're very fortunate to have the dedicated staff that we have here that work a lot of extra hours every week, but this is certainly a pressure point for us. It's 25 hours a week right now in the budget phase where we are next year, but I could see needing to grow that, the next couple of years as well. Also trying to think of the HR side of it. Is Shirley holding a dual title of finance and HR director right now? It's quite a heavy load for one department head to carry. So trying to think of how we spread those HR tasks among the organization as we continue to grow. Erin Dickinson in the manager's office is shared position between Shirley and I, and she's been great to help pick up some HR work, but it's going to be continued theme for the board that I think the next couple budgets as we work through that central administrative capacity here. And so the step we felt with this lean budget we tried to deliver this year was the increased hours for this position to cascade throughout the finance and HR division to assist Shirley and her staff with some additional capacity.
Yeah, and Lynn as well, actually. She is constantly working overtime, so hopefully this 25-hour position will also help to do some of the EP work with Lynn. So we have a full job. So.
More questions?
Sorry, one question is, going through the capital budget, some items are funded through the fund balance, some are through ARPA. Could you just hopefully briefly talk about your strategy for what got ARPA associated with the funding and what got fund balance?
I can speak to that. I don't have numbers in mainly. I tried to look at things with ARPA that were more one-time. You'll see in Public Works there were some equipment items like, building replacements like the chimney, like the design for the fire suppression, trying to fully fund the traffic signal replacement, the message board replacement. Some of those items we can likely defer if the board doesn't want to move forward with them all with ARPA. Some are like the police station locking project that we had intended to not have a double the second year. We funded with ARPA the first year. If we were able to get some grants for that, that would be great, but I don't know if the funds will be available, but things like that for building security, trying to these one-time items. Also trying to balance the use of the fund balance to try to wean it down a little bit. I think for years, using that balancing piece for tax reduction, we were a little bit higher last year. We've gotten it down closer to that $500,000 mark, but as we try to predict where that's moving the next couple of years, I thought for the board is to try to wean off that balancing mechanism. So then that can be funded in other ways, because if we start using that even a couple of years, it's really going to affect your fund balance proportion that you want to have on hold. I think if the town can move more towards using fund balance primarily towards capital into the capital reserve fund, it just builds up the capital reserves more than trying to have a balancing mechanism for taxes. So my thought there is trying to do some incremental movement. Certainly ARPA, having those dollars there to move some of these capital items along, certainly the most pressing ones, is a replacement from using fund balance or just operating dollars, which is at this point likely more taxes.
Okay.
Trying to find that blend and menu that the board wants to look at, and if you want to defer some projects, we can certainly look at it as well.
So Jeff, to add to that, something I noticed as I was sitting here tonight, I think if you look at your page 10 and the capital budget section,
Okay.
my numbers should be right for that. Eric and I have a little refinement to do, but that is the equipment, capital and equipment projects budget summary, and it shows you operating impact fees, fund balance, ARPA, and other. So if you look at that ARPA column, it has 176,000 being funded by ARPA.
We might be on page what?
10.
10 in the, other binder, Jeff.
Sorry, in the capital budget.
Yep.
Sorry. Hang on, let me catch up.
Yep.
Oh, okay, good.
So that 176, that's in that column for ARPA funding. Now, I'm going to take you back to your operating binder. And if you go to your revenue summary,
Yep.
Eric, actually, I think this page might be right, page 40.
Yep, page 40.
40. So if you look at, under the category interest and other revenue, you look down and it says ARPA funding, and we have 217,500 there. Okay. 92,000 of that is for some one-time operating cost. The other 125,000 was ARPA funding. So you can see those numbers don't tie, Eric, you see what I'm saying? So we just need to go back and make those tie. So, out of the 217, 125,000 is just general ARPA funding, but it doesn't tie to this capital expenditure that says 176 is coming from ARPA. So we need to just.
That's just another, this is another transfer in line that.
Yes, so we just need to make those two coincide.
So just to make sure, is it appropriate to say that the amount of ARPA dollars that are being used in the fiscal year 24 budget includes operating and capital, and I should combine the two to get the total amount? So 170 and 217, was that around 400?
So I say, well, is that the number we want? We really only have 217,500 in ARPA funds. No matter what we're saying that we're going to use it for, we only in this budget have 217,500.
But I think we just omitted that transfer in for the capital from the operating.
So,
But I see what you're saying, yeah.
And if we do that, if we put more ARPA money in, it just means we'll lower the property tax. I mean, that's the other piece. So we just, like, as I said, I think Eric we need to sit down and look at that, and when we give you budget changes, we'll have that in there.
All right, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to figure this out. So the 217 is the total amount we're going to spend at 500, is we're going to use ARPA funds for. And we know 176 is for the capital budget. So was it 217,500 minus 176 is what's being used in the operating budget?
Not quite. So the number in the operating budget right here, the 217 would just be in the operating budget, not counting capital.
Okay, so I do need to add the two.
Yeah. We need to add the two. So this makes the operating budget balance. And then this looks at it as an independent source that doesn't have a transfer from the operating. So they're two mutually exclusive numbers.
Right.
Okay. Would it be possible to get one of the things I want to evaluate as we're looking at this and, you know, whether to spend ARPA dollars or how much ARPA dollars is, where does this put us in terms of our remaining ARPA dollars? That would just be helpful for me. Would that be hard to do, Shirley?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Didn't you have that in here somewhere?
I don't think
Thought
I
I
have it in
remember-
there.
Thought I remember seeing it.
But I think I
Got a
have it
spreadsheet.
up on my computer.
And, you know, my concern is someday we're just gonna look at ARPA and go, oh my God, where did it all go?
Right, it's just ding, ding, ding.
And it's
ding.
not that it
Yeah.
didn't go somewhere good, I didn't mean it like
Yeah.
that, but we just didn't realize that the fund was depleted so much.
Yeah.
So, and Eric, you can send this to the select board, but this is just a schedule that I put together of the ARPA funding that's been approved.
Shirley.
Oops, sorry, yep. Come back this way. So this is a schedule that says, okay, here is the projects that have been funded using ARPA funding. So like the 9 new firefighter radios and turnout gear, and this is what we've spent against it. Here's the FY23 funding. Here's some additional funding for like the community center scoping study. And then what we spent against it. So I have a rolling balance right now, and then I put in here only 217,005 right now, Eric. But with that number in mind, we are looking at like 2.3 million unallocated before we need to make this little change, but,
Okay.
and ARPA funding.
Okay, and then if we take the 176 out, so we're down to around 2.1 million. So we basically spent about allocated about $1 million of our 3.1,
Right.
okay? All right, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if that's easy to send, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll send that around.
Yeah,
It's been our
thanks.
tracking mechanism here.
Yeah.
It's, I'll say we're fortunate that we have that money. It's certainly a big
Oh, yeah.
task of how to allocate it, but I think the last couple of years where we'd be if we didn't have that funding to look at some of these
Yeah.
other options.
And is there an end date that we need to allocate or spend that money by?
So I was just gonna ask.
Allocate by the end of calendar year 24, spend by the end of calendar year 26.
Yeah.
Okay, and that includes the revenue replacement, because all of ours is revenue replacement, if I remember correctly.
Right, because they offered that for us to take as the size of our award under 10 million, which opened it up for flexibility. So part of this will be, if it's looking at a larger scale capital project, making sure it can be done by the end of 2026.
The reason I bring this up is because some of the programs I work with for the state of Vermont are funded with ARPA, and supposedly, if I heard what they said correctly, the state revenue replacement dollars does not have to spend it by dates associated with it, which gives the state a lot more flexibility in how it wants to use those dollars. And that's why I was asking whether we had that, and it could be there's just difference with what goes to the state versus what goes to the municipalities.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, good, thank you. That was helpful to me at least.
You're welcome.
So there's no capital expenditure.
I do not.
Under finance.
No.
Okay, so we're good, I think, for what we're gonna do. The rest of this, next week, as far as the budget goes, as well as other business that we had to take care of for next week. But, before we do that, we have other business to take care of. Eric, you have something to take up?
Not sure I did, Terry. Was it what we were talking about on the phone earlier, or?
You didn't tell me, you said
Oh.
you had something else to take up.
Oh, no, nothing tonight.
Nothing?
No other business for me tonight.
Okay. So any other business to take up tonight? All right, then we are adjourned. I think next week.